Hi friends, welcome to my channel English Academy. Today we will discuss about the biography of Walt Whitman. So let's begin. Walt Whitman was born on May 31st, 1819 in the village of West Hills on Long Island, New York, approximately 50 miles east of New York City. He was the second of 8 children. He was the second child of his parents. Whiteman's father was of English descent and his mother was Dutch. His father was English and his mother was a Dutch. In early life, he would refer to his ancestors as having been early settlers of Long Island. His ancestors was resident of Long Island. In 1822, when Watt was 2 years old, the Whiteman family moved to Brooklyn, which was still a small town. Whiteman would spend most of the next 40 years of his life in Brooklyn. After finishing public school in Brooklyn, Whiteman began working at the age of 11. He was an office boy for a law office before becoming an apprentice printer at a newspaper. In his late teens, Whiteman worked for several years as a school teacher in rural Long Island. In 1838, he founded a weekly newspaper on Long Island. He reported and wrote stories, printed the paper, and even delivered it on horseback. By the early 1840s, he had broken into professional journalism, writing articles for magazines and newspapers in New York. Early writing efforts by Whiteman were fairly conventional. He wrote about popular trends and contributed sketches about city life. In 1842, he wrote the temperance novel Franklin Evans, which depicted the horror of alcoholism. In the mid 1840s, Whiteman became the editor of the Brooklyn Daily Eagle, but his political views, which were aligned with the upstart Free Soil Party, eventually got him fired. He then took a job working at a newspaper in New Orleans. While he seemed to enjoy the exotic nature of the city, he was apparently homesick for Brooklyn. The job only lasted a few months. By the early 1850s, he was still writing for newspapers, but his focus had turned to poetry. He often jotted down notes for poems by the busy city life around him. In 1855, Whiteman published the first edition of Leaves of Grass. The book was unusual as the 12 poems it included were untitled and were set in type that looked more like prose than poetry. Whiteman had written a lengthy and remarkable preface, essentially introducing himself as an American bard. For the fronti- frontispiece, he selected an engraving of himself dressed as a common worker. The green covers of the book were embossed with the title Leaves of Grass. Curiously, the title page of the book, perhaps because of an oversight, did not contain the author's name. The poems in the original edition were inspired by the things Whiteman found fascinating: the crowds of New York, the modern inventions the public marveled over, and the raucous politics of the 1850s. While Whiteman apparently hoped to become the poet of the common man, his book went largely unnoticed. However, Leaves of Grass did not attract one major fan. White man admired the writer and speaker Ralph Waldo Emerson and sent him a copy of his book. White man produced approximately 800 copies of the first edition of Leaves of Grass, and the following year he published the third edition of the book was issued by a Boston publishing house, Thayer and Elrich. Whiteman traveled to Boston to spend 3 months in 1860 preparing the book, which contained more than 400 pages of poetry. Some of the poems in the 1860 edition referred to homosexuality, and while the poems were not explicit, they were nonetheless controversial. In 1861, during the beginning of the Civil War, Whiteman's brother George enlisted in a New York infantry regiment. In December 1862, White Whiteman, believing his brother may have been wounded at the Battle of Fredericksburg, traveled to the front in Virginia. Sorry, here here this is not wild. This is white man. Okay, writing mistakes. Sorry. The proximity to the war to soldiers and especially to the wounded had profound effect. Sorry, here this is not head. This is hard. Writing mistake. Sorry for that. Okay, wounded had profound effect on white man. He became deeply interested in helping the wounded and began volunteering in military hospitals in Washington. His visits with wounded soldiers would inspire a number of Civil War poems, which he would eventually collect in a book, Drumstab. This is a book named Drumstab. This is a book named Drumstab. This is a book named Drumstab. As he traveled around Washington, Whiteman would often see Abraham Lincoln passing by in his carriage. He had a really deep respect for Lincoln and attended the president's second inauguration on March 4th, 1865. Whiteman wrote an essay about the inauguration, which was published in the on Sunday, New York Times on Sunday, March 12, 1865. By the end of the Civil War, Whiteman had found a hard found a comfortable job working as a clerk in a government office in Washington that came to an end when the newly installed Secretary of the Interior James Harlan discovered that his office employed the author of Leaves of Grass. Leaves of Grass was a controversial book at that time, so he got fired. With the intercession of friends, Whiteman got another federal job this time, ser- serving as a clerk in the Department of Justice. He remained in government work until 1874 when ill health led him to resign. Death plagued by health problems, Whiteman moved to Camden, New Jersey in the mid 1870s. When he died on March 26, 1892, the news of his death was widely reported. Whitman was interred in a tomb of his own design in Harlech Cemetery in Camden, New Jersey. In 1892, March 26, he died, and he buried at Harlech Cemetery, Camden, New Jersey. Now let us know his best known poems. First, Song of Myself. O Captain, my Captain, when lilacs last in the dooryard bloomed, there was a child who went forth. Once self I sing, poets to come, I hear America singing, crossing Brooklyn Ferry, out of the cradle endlessly rocking, passes to India. Out of the cradle endlessly rocking is the important poem for fourth semester students English honors, having English honors. So in the next video we'll discuss out of the cradle and actually rocking. So this is the biography, or this is the detail about Walt Whitman. Thank you.